All right, as it's 11:03, we'll go ahead and get started. And so, as I mentioned before, for everyone that was on at exactly 11 on the dot, welcome to the Preparing for the Golden State Priority Project webinar. We're excited to have you guys here and walk through a bunch of different topics today and questions you may have. Next slide. Quick agenda for the day. We have split it up into two different sessions. First session, we'll be going over some new and upcoming requirements, including the Open Charge Point Protocol certification, Energy Star certification, ISO 15118, hardware ready, and then some charger uptime requirements. So you have your mind a little break in between that session and getting ready to go over some of the next stuff. In the next session, we'll do approximately a 5-minute break, and then we'll get back together to go over some of the Cali VIP website and online resources that are new. And so we'll run through some of the website redesign as well as some of the new applicant resources that we want to highlight for that. And then finally, we have a Q&A session at the end, which will answer all those questions that you have throughout both sessions at the very end with some panelists. Next slide. As some introductions, my name is Bailey Muller. I'm a senior manager here at the Center for Sustainable Energy. I'm excited to be here. We have a couple different speakers today, both internal and external. So Lanaka Dreisen is from the Open Charge Alliance, Emmy Feldman with ICF, Jeffrey Liu with the California Energy Commission, Fidel Leon Green with the Center for Sustainable Energy will all be some presenters for us. And then we'll follow with the panel at the end for the Q&A, which Brian Flavel will join us from the CEC as well to help answer some questions. Next slide. Before we get started, participants will be muted throughout the entirety of the webinar. However, you can submit questions and chats within the chat box and the question function throughout the presentation. We will be monitoring the chat and questions for all the questions throughout all the presentations, and then allocating time at the end to answer those. Additionally, we will be conducting interactive polls throughout the presentation. There'll be 5 total polls, and so you can respond within that. And then if you have any additional feedback within the poll questions, you can put that within the chat. And we had over 500 people register, which is very exciting for this webinar. But due to that high traffic, if there's any technical difficulties during other presentations, we apologize. But we will be recording this presentation and distributing it on our website, so you can access it later and view again. But if there's any part of the presentations you have questions on or anything like that, feel free to email us at calivip@energycenter.org. Next slide. As an overview, Cali VIP 2.0, some project goals and priorities. One of our main priorities here is readiness and rapid deployment of chargers. In 2.0 specifically, if you guys are aware of 1.0, we integrated an applicant readiness prioritization through a tiered ranking system this time, which we'll go over a little bit more details in a bit. We have implemented some tools to assist applicants with project management, such as construction progress trackers, and we plan to just have a fast release of funding with other regions of next projects. So after this one, with this specific Golden State Priority Project, new rounds, we hope to have them quickly deployed to be able to get a wide range of infrastructure development across the state. Another priority for us is fast and efficient application processing. We know that everyone wants to get their money in chargers online as soon as possible. And so as different from the 1.0, people are aware of that, rather than doing the first come, first serve, which has been in other projects we've released, this 2.0 will be an application windows for submission. So we'll have an open date and end date, and then all applications will be processed at the end once that open time closes. We're trying to increase some automation within processing and applicant communication, and we will notice every one of their award and reserve funds 1 month after the application window closes. And then finally, this 2.0 has a very large focus on equitable distribution of chargers. We are prioritizing DC fast charging deployment with a balance of low income and disadvantaged communities across the state. And we hope to have fair and equitable distribution for EV communities and EV service providers through our funding distribution. Next slide. And through that, we have some equity and outreach partners. to increase the access of charging within the most vulnerable places within the state. We are partnering with the Central California Asthma Collaborative, CCAC, as well as Grid Alternatives, which are helping us conduct education and outreach to community-based organizations and other local partners within these areas. Next slide. So that was a little bit more information on Cali VIP 2.0. This specific project, the Golden State Priority Project, which is what we'll be releasing in January. We'll be going over some more details in the next few slides on this. But the Golden State Priority Project, this launch specifically will cover $30 million. It'll be split over 2 different regions. The central region is 12 counties, and that'll be approximately $10 million will be distributed. And then 18 counties in the eastern region, which $20 million will be distributed. There are possibilities, like I mentioned before, for additional rounds and additional regions after this, but this specific project in this timeline will be focusing on these specified regions. At the base of this page, you can find our website link that goes specifically to the Golden State Priority Project, and you can get all this information, the maps, and more specified info about this launch. Next slide. So our project requirements and funding amounts. The Golden State Priority Project is only funding DC fast chargers with a minimum guaranteed output of 150 kilowatts per active connector. To be eligible, you have to have a minimum of 4 active connectors per site with a maximum of 20 active connectors to be eligible for a rebate. We have a list of eligible equipment and network providers within our website. And this list, you can see all the approved equipment and providers on the site with that link right there. That will be updated as more providers and equipment get on the list, but you do have to make sure that the equipment you're using is on the list in order to be eligible for the rebate. Priority populations, like I mentioned before, is a very high priority for this project specifically. Sites will only be funded within disadvantaged communities or low-income communities as defined by the California Air Resources Board Climate Investments Priority Populations Map. This map is the 4.0 version, so if the map that other people have been referencing for 1.0 projects, it is a different map than that. And so please make sure you're looking to see if your site is within that those areas. And then finally, rebate eligibility, up to 50% of the project's total approved costs are eligible. So if it's within 150 kilowatt to 274.99 kilowatts for the active connector, you'll get approximately 55,000, and then 275 kilowatts or above $100,000 per connector. Next slide. And so applicant eligibility and site requirements, this slide is a little bit heavy on the text, but we will have more information on this on our website if you want to go through. But overall, you must be a site owner, business, sole proprietorship, nonprofit, tribe, or public or government entity based in California or operate as a California-based affiliate. And then sites must be well lit, secure, and compliant with all laws, ordinances, codes, etc., and must be available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There are certain exceptions that are exempt from that 24/7, and gate requirements must still require a minimum availability of 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we do have a list of all eligible site types if you're wondering if your specific property is eligible. And so once again, visit our website there and it gives a little bit more broken down detail. Next slide. The tier status, this is new for Cali VIP. This is something that we are very excited about and hoping that will expedite the process of getting chargers deployed a little bit faster. So after every applicant submits their final application, you'll be asked to provide certain supporting documents and within the permit and utility service application package. And so once you do that, your application will be placed within a tier based upon how much kind of readiness documents you have supplied. And so once you're ranked in your tier, that is how you basically will get put in the queue for how your application will be processed. So the more ready your project is, the faster it will be processed, and the more likely it will be funded. And so the tier systems are ranked 1, 2, and 3, the highest, medium, and lowest. The highest is ready to build. This basically requires you to have a site verification form, an issued permit, and final utility design. People within this tier will be processed first. The second medium one is design approved tier, and it requires a site verification form, an issued permit, or a final utility design. So just one or the other, not both, as in the first one did. And then finally, the lowest, which is the design in progress. So the site verification form, the permit application package, or a utility service design application package. These will be processed behind both the ready to build and design approved. So we are encouraging everyone to get sites ready as much as possible so you are most competitive in order to get any funds. Next slide. And finally, just as a quick snapshot of where our process is and calendar at this point. And so the application process, the application window will open on January 24th. The application window closes on March 10th. Like I mentioned before, this is not first come, first serve, and so there's no need to rush and get your application in on January 24th. You do have until the 10th, and then we will do 7 days to figure out your tier and notify you of your tier, and then applicants will be processed until May 22nd once they're in that queue, and all applicant funds reserved will be notified no later than the 22nd. And so we're excited about this process, and we're really excited about seeing how many applications get in and hope that we can get as many tier ones as possible. And so now jumping into the actual presenters today, we'll be going into our session 1, new and upcoming requirements. So next slide. And so I'd like to introduce Lannika Dreysen of the Open Charge Alliance. She'll be going over the OCPP certification with you. Thank you. And Lannika?
Yes, thank you. So welcome everybody. My name is Lannika Dreysen and I work for the Open Charge Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization that governs the standard OCPP. Next slide, please. So I'd like to walk you through the certification process, but first, why is there an OCPP certification program? So very simply, it is to validate that the system has implemented OCPP correctly. There are many implementations of OCPP out there, and this is just a way to make sure that it's done according to all the details in the specification itself. If you are buying equipment, it's really useful to check before you buy a system to check if it is really conform the standard. If you are a vendor of equipment, it's great to promote your systems to buyers because the OCPP certificate is sort of a quality sign. And once all parties have implemented this OCPP protocol exactly to the spec, it's easier to integrate systems because there's no more discussion about which messages are correct. It's just all been settled before by the certification program. So that's the reason why the Open Charge Alliance set up this certification program. Next slide, please. So there are various types of certificates that you could get. So there is, of course, a difference between the OCPP versions, OCPP 1.6, which is the version which was published in 2015, and which is the version that's currently most widely used. And there are also certificates upcoming for the new version of OCPP, OCPP 2.0.1. So the certification program for 1.6 has been available since 2019. And the certification program for the newer version 2.0.1 will open in May of next year. You can get 3 types of certificates. You can choose which one you would like to apply for. So first of all, there is this fully certified certificate, which means you have implemented every feature in the OCPP specification, all the mandatory features, of course, and you can pick and choose some optional features. If you decide to implement a subset of the specification, you can also do that, and then you will get a subset certificate. And in the next slide, I will explain more what's included and what's excluded. But you can either choose a full certificate or a subset certificate. For OCPP 1.6, there is an additional security certificate because security is not an integral part of the specification, so that's why it's separate. For OCPP 2.0.1, security is integral into the specification, so that's why it's included in either the full certificate or the subset certificate. So don't worry, there's also security in 2.0.1, of course. Next slide, please. So if you are implementing OCPP 1.6, if you are a charging station or a charging station management system, you can apply for a full certificate. And here you see that all the functional parts of OCPP 1.6 have been implemented correctly. So then every part of OCPP is mandatory. If you apply for a subset certificate, you have to implement the core functionality of OCPP, but then you can pick any or a few of the profiles, whichever you would like to use. So for instance, core and smart charging or core and reservation, then you will get a subset certificate. And of course, it is up to everybody to really read the certificate itself to see which parts are actually included in the subset. For the security certificates for OCPP 1.6, the general part is mandatory. The security profile 1 is optional, but you should either implement security profile 2 or 3, or both, of course. But that's mandatory in order to get a 1.6 security certificate. For a charging station, it's possible to also get a subset certificate for a charging station management system for 1.6. The only option is a full certificate, so you have to implement everything. And the next slide, I will explain about 2.0. So next slide, please. So for OCPP 2.0.1, both charging stations and charging station management system can apply for either a full certificate or a subset certificate. And here you see all the different functionalities in 2.0.1. And again, if you're fully certified, you've implemented everything. Possibly not a lot of vendors will do that from day one, but we think that most vendors will opt for the subset certificate. And of course, they have to implement the core of 2.0.1, and they can add the functionality according to their use cases. Next slide, please. So the certification procedure is quite simple. So the first step is a vendor who wants to get a certificate contacts one of the testing laboratories and agree with the testing laboratory on testing services. There are 6 locations and 3 different organizations that you could approach, and you can discuss with them the timing and also the price of the testing services. So this testing laboratory performs the test independently, and once you have passed all the tests successfully, then the laboratory provides you with a test report and all the detailed test results for you to check. So if you check it and you agree, you sign the test report, you send it back to the test laboratory, and then the test laboratory signs it and forwards it to OCA. And OCA issues, in the end, the formal certificates. And if you would like to know the certification procedure in detail, it's on the OCA website. Next slide, please. So this is a map where all the test locations are located. So we have 1 location in Korea, 1 in Singapore, 2 in the Netherlands, and 2 over there, over where you are in the United States, 1 in Virginia, and a new one has opened in California. It's important to note that all these labs perform the exact same service, and it also means that if one lab issues you with a certificate, it's valid globally. So if you have ever gotten a certificate in Korea, it's valid everywhere, so you don't have to recertify again for other regions of the world. Next slide, please. So the tests are, of course, executed with a testing tool. And the testing tools are provided by the Open Charge Alliance, and the certification labs use this exact same test tool. So if you would like to prepare for certification, you could get the tool yourself. You can purchase it from the Open Charge Alliance. You don't have to, but it would be really helpful in your preparation. So we have 2 different tools. We have an older tool for OCPP 1.6, and we recently released a newer tool for OCPP 2.0.1, which is, of course, more advanced. It's very, it has a lot of improvements as towards the older tool. But you could see for yourself, there are some demonstrations that you can find on our website and on our YouTube channel. You can acquire the tool if you are a member of OCA or a non-member. If you are a member, you get a discount on the tool price. Same goes, of course, for the certification program. You can enter the certification program as an OCA member or as a non-member. That's both okay. Next slide, please. So all the documentation which describes the certification procedure and the test procedure are on the OCA website. There is also a protocol implementation conformance statement, which is a detailed form which states what your implementation has implemented in detail. And that's very important for the labs to also assess what they should test, which parts you would like them to test. And on the OCA website, there's also a list of all the different labs and all their contact details for you to reach out to. Next slide, please. So once you have been certified, you will be listed on the OCA website. So a summary of your test report, of course, your organization, and what product has been certified and the date. And this is very important for you to know, because there are sometimes some companies, unfortunately, who claim that they have been certified, but the rule is if the company and the product is not on the website, they have not been certified. So this is really important. So if a company is not listed here, it means that something is not correct, and you should really double check either with the vendor directly or contact OCA. It's really important to know this. And if you go to the OCA website, you will see a long list of all the vendors and all the products that came before you. Next slide, please. So you can click on the link at the OCA website, and there you'll see a summary of the test report. So this is, I think, one of the first certificates we issue for EVBox, and you see an abstract of the test report, and you also see the details of this specific station, what has been implemented and what has been tested. Next slide, please. So the fee for OCPP certification is for you to negotiate with the different labs. What OCA has done is set a maximum fee for the lab. So the certification labs are not allowed to charge you more than what's stated here, but you can also always negotiate a better deal. There are different fees for charging station test and charging station management test, and the reason for that is that it's more work for testing a charging station. So it takes the labs longer to verify the OCPP implementation of a charging station. Charging station management system just has less tests. There is again here a discount for an OCA member. You can get a discount on the certification fee. The certification fees for OCPP 2.0.1 we do not know yet, because these fees are depending on the amount of hours that a lab spends on testing. And for 2.0.1, we don't know that in detail. As soon as we know how much time it takes to run an OCPP 2.0.1 certification test, we will update the prices and share them on the OCA website. Next slide, please. So again, all the information is on the OCA website for 1.6 and of course for 2.0.1. So please keep an eye on that, or if afterwards you have more information, you can visit the Cali VIP website, or you can go to the OCA website. And if something at that point is you'd like more clarification, then you can always either contact one of the labs or contact OCA directly. Next slide, please. I think that we're on our last slide. So again, if you'd like to learn more, please contact us. Thanks, Fidel.
Perfect. Thank you, Annika. And so starting off with our first poll question, if everyone please participate in this, just a way that you can see from your fellow attendees and we can get a better idea of where people are at within the process. How far along are your DC fast chargers in the OCPP certification process? Okay, so it looks like the majority of people have not started the process yet. So like Fidel mentioned, this is not required for this specific launch, but maybe for future launches. So something to definitely take into consideration as you guys are moving forward for equipment manufacturers to understand the future requirements. Next slide. And so now we'll pass it off for Energy Star certification. Emmy Feldman with ICF will be presenting on this for us. So Emmy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Emmy Feldman. I'm a clean transportation manager at ICF. I've been supporting government clients for about 10 years on both energy efficiency and clean transportation technology, including the EPA on the Energy Star program. I supported the development of the Energy Star EV charging specification since its inception back in 2015. And I'm going to walk you through some of the key details of the specification and then also how to apply to gain Energy Star certification for your EV charging equipment. Next slide. All right, first, I just want to touch on some of the key components and benefits of certifying charging equipment to Energy Star. The Energy Star label guarantees that certified products were safety tested. Some of you might know that there's several brands on the market being sold directly to consumers that are in fact not safety certified or even have some counterfeit certifications. And the process to determine if a charger is safety certified is complicated. It typically involves searching the databases of 6 different nationally recognized testing labs. And that's sort of a cumbersome, complicated process to determine safety compliance. However, since this is a key requirement for Energy Star, and since the Energy Star is a third-party certification program, the label provides that due diligence to indicate that the product meets all industry safety requirements. This benefit of the program is energy savings. Energy Star certified charging stations have demonstrated energy savings over the traditional products. The specification also has optional connected criteria that, if pursued, demonstrate that your product uses open standards communication protocols like Monica just mentioned, OCPP, which is a common requirement for utility programs. And then lastly, the Energy Star brand is recognized by over 90% of US households. So the label is known and recognized and often sought out by consumers and other purchasers. And the Energy Star program regularly provides educational resources to purchasers that can be leveraged and even co-branded by brand owners. Next slide. All right, I want to quickly walk through the key components of the specification criteria, starting with AC level 1 and level 2 chargers. Those that meet the Energy Star specification have energy savings of 40% in standby modes. Idaho National Lab estimates that chargers are in standby for about 85% of their lifetime. And this criteria results in unit savings of 30 kilowatt hours per year. And we've found that there's no incremental cost difference in purchasing an Energy Star unit over a non-Energy Star unit. So this results in energy and dollar savings with no additional upfront cost. Currently, there are about 50 different brand owners with over 150 qualified models on the Energy Star EV charging list. Next slide. All right, moving on to the DC specification. There are active charging efficiency requirements of 93% for products less than 65 kilowatts, and minimum standby requirements for all DC chargers in scope, which are all chargers up to 350 kilowatts. So anything above 350 kilowatts is out of scope of the Energy Star program. And the resulting savings are much larger on the DC side, on the order of 1.5 megawatt hours per year for a 65 kilowatt unit. And those savings can, just continue to go up as the power level goes up. This specification is a bit newer than the AC charger specification, so the qualified product list is not as robust, but it's quickly growing. It has there's 15 products qualified at this time from 4 different manufacturers, with a bunch more manufacturers going through the process now. Next slide. As I mentioned, there are optional connected criteria in the specification. If a product meets this criteria, it can be listed as connected capable on the Energy Star qualified product list. We've heard from a number of utilities that are interested in this designation, so I just want to encourage brand owners to pursue this criteria if your products are not currently listed as connected capable on the Energy Star site. One key aspect of the connected requirements is that the product must support open standards communication protocols. Next slide. To get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of the criteria, the goal is really to target products that are intended for long dwell time applications like fleets or residential units. Some of the more specific criteria include being able to set charging schedules, remotely manage charging, and then also to be able to respond to specific demand response requests, such as charge now, curtail charge, and delay charge. The process to get the connected designation, if your products are already Energy Star certified, is outlined on the right side of the screen here. Starting with just a check to make sure you meet the criteria, then asking your certification body to update your product listing, and then providing your certification body with any requested documentation to determine compliance. They might ask for like spec sheets or manuals to make sure that the product meets all of the Energy Star requirements for connected. And then the certification body would update the Energy Star listing to indicate the product as connected capable, and that would automatically be reflected on the qualified product list within 24 hours. So this is a pretty simple paperwork exercise process. So just want to encourage folks to pursue this certification since there are utilities looking for this designation. Next slide. Here's a list of the participating Energy Star brand owners. As you could see, this includes a vast majority of the market. Pause for a second. All right, next slide. Okay, I'll switch gears a little bit to outline the process for certifying your product meets the Energy Star requirements. The beginning of the process, which you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, involves the brand owner or the Energy Star partner contacting an EPA-recognized lab and certification body to get the ball rolling on testing and certifying that the product meets the requirements. This part of the process can be as quick as a few days, but most likely will take longer. It kind of depends on the eagerness to achieve certification and also the lab testing availability. And then the second part of the process is pretty quick. That's on the right side of the screen. So once the certification body determines compliance, they'll submit the necessary data and information to EPA, and then it will automatically get added to the Energy Star qualified product list within 24 hours. Next slide. So getting into the more granular steps for pursuing certification, the first step is to submit a partnership application. This is just the simple paperwork exercise part of applying. Involves downloading these forms that are linked at the bottom of the screen, filling them out with just some simple information, and then returning them to that inbox, the join@energystar.gov inbox at the bottom of the screen. And then they're typically processed within 1 to 2 weeks. And then you get an Energy Star org ID, which you can then use to give to your third parties. Next slide. So like I mentioned, the Energy Star program is a third-party certification process. And what this really means is that in order to earn the label, all products across the 75+ Energy Star product categories must be tested in an EPA-recognized laboratory, and the resulting measurements then must be certified by an EPA-recognized certification body. These recognized labs test according to either the Energy Star AC EV charging test method, or there's a separate Energy Star DC charging test method. And a lab can gain recognition by being accredited to ISO 17025 or by participating in a certified body's witnessed or supervised testing program. Next slide. All right, let's explore these two options a little bit more. Option number one is the in-house testing through a witnessed laboratory testing program. So this option allows manufacturers to enroll their own in-house labs to test the products. So this is a great option for DC charging because as we know, these products are larger, the testing is a bit more complicated, shipping these products provides some challenges, and often the manufacturer labs are already very equipped to test their own products. So this is a good option to consider on the DC side. There are 3 recognized certification bodies with an approved witness supervised testing program. Those are listed here, along with their direct contact information. And those are UL, TUV, SUD America, and Intertech. And we'd encourage you to work with one of these certification bodies as soon as possible if you'd like to pursue this option to get the process started to enroll in the witness program. Next slide. And as you work with one of these certification bodies to enroll your own manufacturer lab facility, there are really 2 paths you can pursue. One would be to just achieve the ISO 17025 accreditation for your lab. Or if you don't want to pursue that or your lab is not accredited, you can enroll in the witness supervised testing program, by contacting one of those folks on the previous slide. Through the process, the certification body will conduct its own assessment of your lab to the ISO requirements and may ask to witness the test procedure at your facility. Next slide. The other option, number 2, is the more traditional approach to shipping your unit to be tested in a third-party laboratory. There's a list of EPA recognized certification bodies that can sort of help you through this process and ensure that the product is being tested in an acceptable EPA recognized lab. The lab would then send the resulting measurements to the certification body to verify compliance. Next slide. We have a link here to all the EPA recognized testing labs and certification bodies for EVSE, and also the contact information for the Energy Star certification team. So if you have any questions about this process at this time, or as you start to go through the process, they're here to help you. And I want to specifically note the DC accredited laboratory list. It's sort of in the center bottom of the screen. It also has the anticipated timeline for testing products at different power levels. These third-party labs have been sort of rapidly building capacity to test higher powered DC products since there's been a sort of historical lack of labs with this capability to test the higher powered products. But a lot of progress has been made, and there's already one with this capacity to test the higher powered products currently. And there are 2 others that will be able to test higher powered stations within the next few months. And just a reminder, you can still pursue the in-house testing option if that's your preference, but this third-party laboratory testing is another option. Next slide. Lastly, I just want to mention that EPA is currently working on a potential minor revision to the AC EV charging specification that would consider including some additional adders, mainly for commercial AC chargers. And this is in response to some new proposed requirements from the state of California. We've heard from brand owners that some of those requirements might result in a bit more power during standby. So EPA is looking into that and considering some additional allowances. The anticipated timeline for that effort shown here, anticipating a draft to be released in January with a 2-week comment deadline, and then an effective date of February, hoping that this is a pretty quick turnaround. Next slide. And here's contact information for the Energy Star team. Feel free to contact any of us. If you have any additional questions about certification or the specification or marketing efforts, please feel free to contact us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Emmy. Okay, next slide, Maria. Okay, here's poll question number 2. So another one for equipment providers. How far along are your DC fast chargers in the Energy Star certification process? So it looks like most have not started the process, but the certification has been obtained is a second place. So it looks like it's a good mix. So next slide. The next portion of the presentations, we'll be popping it over to Jeffrey Liu with the California Energy Commission. He'll be going over the ISO 15118 hardware ready requirements. So Jeffrey?
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Liu. I'm staff here at the CEC. In this next portion of the workshop, I'm going to be going over the new ISO 15118 requirements in Cali VIP, and also talking about how charging providers can meet the updated requirements. Next slide. Before I dive specifically into ISO 15118, I want to remind folks that we're introducing a new set of technical requirements in July of next year to ensure that investments made through Cali VIP support widespread vehicle grid integration and also interoperability. So you've been hearing about some of these requirements already. We'll be requiring that chargers be certified for Energy Star, as well as OCPP version 1.6 or newer. That's for July of next year. Just as a heads up, CEC plans to require certification to OCPP version 2 or newer in the coming years as well. The last updated technical requirement that I want to discuss is that all chargers funded through Cali VIP must be ISO 15118 ready next year. This is a self-attested spec, which means that there's no testing requirement and that manufacturers should include this information on the charger model's datasheet. All the requirements that you see on the screen right now, they're already posted on the Cali VIP website, and there's a link to the website or the relevant webpage on the slide here. So if you have any colleagues who would benefit from knowing this information, feel free to pass along the link or this entire workshop deck. Next slide. The CEC developed and published a definition for ISO 15118 ready earlier this year based on extensive stakeholder input. This definition is what we'll be using in Cali VIP going forward. An ISO 15118 ready charger is any charger that is capable of all of the following that you see on the screen. So number one, power line carrier based high level communication as specified in 15118-3. So this typically means that the charger is equipped with a home plug GreenPhi transceiver or the chip. Number two, secure management and storage of keys and certificates. This could be using a hardware security module, a trusted platform module, soft HSM, or some similar technology. The charger should also have sufficient memory to store keys and certificates used for 15118-2, -20, or both of those versions. In case you're not familiar, various use cases in ISO 15118 rely on keys and certificates to ensure security and to authenticate the user. This part of the definition is pretty flexible as we don't want to be prescriptive on how manufacturers meet these capabilities. Number three, the charger must support TLS version 1.2. We also recommend that you support TLS version 1.3 as this is what's required in -20. Number four, the charger must be capable of receiving updates to activate 15118 use cases. We also recommend supporting the ability to update cipher suites in case existing ones become obsolete. And finally, number five, the charger must be capable of connecting to a backend network. This means that you must support either Wi-Fi, Ethernet, cellular, or some combination of those to connect to the internet. Next slide. The point of the ISO 15118 ready definition and the requirement in Cali VIP is to ensure that CEC's charger investments have the hardware to support future charging functionalities. These include plug and charge, smart charging, and other use cases. Our definition for 15118 ready targets hardware, and the nuance here is that the requirement does not imply immediate software implementation of 15118 use cases. So to illustrate what I mean, I have a couple examples here. Example number one, an ISO 15118 ready charger is equipped with all the necessary hardware to support plug and charge, but it might not yet have plug and charge activated due to pending software updates, public key infrastructure enrollment, or other reasons. Here's another example. An ISO 15118 ready bidirectional charger has the hardware to send bidirectional charging commands using 15118-20. But today it might use other communication protocols such as DIN-SPEC or maybe even a proprietary solution. The charger is capable of receiving an over-the-air update to enable 15118-20 based bidirectional charging at some later date. One additional clarification on this last example. The 15118 ready definition does not require bidirectional charging capability. However, the requirement means that any bidirectional charger enrolled with Cali VIP must be ISO 15118 ready. Next slide. As I mentioned prior, all chargers funded through Cali VIP must be 15118 ready beginning July of next year. To be clear, the 15118 ready requirement does not include any conformance testing or certification testing. This is a self-attested spec that you should indicate on the charger model's datasheet. These datasheets should be publicly available and easy to find, so don't create a CEC-specific datasheet. Finally, while this is a self-attested spec for the time being, the CEC may consider 15118 conformance testing requirements in the future if and when those testing programs become available. Next slide. Thanks for your attention. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions after the workshop, please feel free to reach out to the emails listed here. That's all from me, and I think we'll wrap this up with a poll question.
Yep, so poll question here for equipment providers again. Are your DC fast chargers ISO 15118 hardware ready? Okay, a little over the majority have yes, so that's good to know. Okay, we're going into the final section of session one here with charger uptime requirements. And so Fidel, if you want to take it over here.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey, and thanks to all of our guest presenters. Next slide, please. So I guess I want to start with clarifying that the previous requirements discussed don't start until July 1st, as Jeffrey mentioned, but these charger uptime requirements will be in effect for this first launch of the Golden State Priority Project. These charger uptime requirements are that each charger be required to be up at least 97% of a site's standard hours of operation. And this up definition applies to both hardware and software, meaning that it is online and available for use or in use, and that the charging connector can successfully dispense electricity as expected. The uptime definition and how it will be calculated annually is taking the total standard hours of operation, subtracting time that counts as downtime, excluding any excluded downtime, so adding that back to that sum, and then dividing that whole sum by the total standard hours of operation, creating a percentage of uptime, and that equation should be at least 97%. Next slide, please. The way we are defining total standard hours of operation is for all sites that are available 24/7. That equates to 8,760 hours, which is just a full year of constant operation. The parking garage and lot sites have an exception to the 24/7 hour rule. So if those sites are not available 24/7, they must at minimum be available 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, excluding holidays. So that is the minimum of 6,372 hours. However, this may vary depending on the specific site availability. So again, downtime is defined as any 15-minute interval within the standard of hours of operation, during which a charge point's response to the central system's request, so meaning like a ping for notification of operative status. And we want this to indicate that the connector or charge point, or sorry, we don't want it to indicate that the connector or charge point is in an operative state, but if it does, then that counts as downtime. Next slide, please. The excluded downtime are periods of downtime that the charging provider is not responsible for. However, we would still anticipate attempting to resolve the issue with the responsible party. So these excluded downtime reasons are electric grid power loss, meaning usually the electric utility is at fault here and is not supplying the site with the electricity it needs. Accident, vandalism, or theft. We know these things happen and won't hold charging providers liable for these. However, there is a maximum of 5 days for each time this happens because we still want these issues to be resolved as quickly as possible, and I'm sure the site host would like this as well. Telecommunication network outages. Sometimes cellular communication can be spotty, so these downtimes are counted as excluded downtimes. However, if the reason is that the cellular communication chip is no longer compatible with an existing cellular network, that does not count as excluded downtime because that is an equipment issue that should be resolved. Planned outage for maintenance or upgrade can also be counted as excluded downtime, and any extraordinary events, unforeseeable events that would be impossible to plan for can also count as excluded downtime. So these are the reasons that would be identified as downtime that can be added back to that equation and does not count against your uptime requirement. And note that a change in ownership of the site would not relieve the applicant organization from these uptime requirements. So make sure when you are installing a charger, you can keep it up for the required number of hours and years. Next slide, please. So these charger uptime requirements will apply to all chargers receiving funding through the Golden State Priority Project, including the current funding window that will launch in January. And these charger uptime requirements may be revised in future applications for consistency with other Energy Commission solicitations, for example, the NEVI formula program funding. Next slide, please. An additional note here, AB 2061 was passed, I believe, last year and requires the Commission to develop uptime record keeping and reporting standards for EV chargers and charging stations. And this begins January 1st, 2024. And this is for any charging stations installed on or after January 1st, 2024. So chargers installed through Cali VIP through the Golden State Priority Project will most likely be subject to these requirements, and we'll be providing guidance on how to make sure you are complying with this if your charger falls under this regulation.
We're going to move on to our second session, which will be going over our brand new website we just launched last week, as well as some new online resources. And so Fidel will be walking us through that. So Fidel, kind of take it away from here.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey. Next slide, please. So as you may have noticed, we have launched a new website and a few things have moved around. We've also improved some of the layouts and some of the groupings of information. There's also these nice new graphics. And let me know if you see the little Easter egg on the right side of the home screen. So the first thing I want to talk about is navigation. We've reorganized the pages and information in a way that we believe is a little more intuitive. Firstly, we've gathered all the high-level information about Cali VIP into one tab. This is the About tab, where you can find the About Cali VIP page, our frequently asked questions, aggregated by project, and also some general questions. Our rebate statistics page that is overarching can also be found on that tab, as well as an events and webinars tab that is new and we'll go over at a later slide. We also have created a second Find Rebates page for 2.0 rebates. So now there's a 1.0 and a 2.0 rebates page. Next slide, please. And Applicant Resources tab that is your home for all questions related to how to apply for Cali VIP. So for example, there are general eligibility and requirements that are overarching over all Cali VIP projects, both 1.0 and 2.0. So feel free to check that out. Access to our free technical assistance resource, as well as our eligible equipment listings and document library. That is your one place to look for forms and any other required documents or informational documents that you might be interested in or need. Those are all within that document library. We also have resources for property owners. That page has been added here, as well as resources for contractors and access to list your business for Cali VIP Connects. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then we also have EV Charging Resources tab. This is meant to be our home for a broad EV charging education pages, including our EV Charging 101 page, how to find EV charging providers. This is our Cali VIP Connects page, how to plan your installation, so on and so forth. That is your home for just general EV charging infrastructure. And you don't have to be a Cali VIP participant to use those resources. They're intended to be useful to anyone that is interested in EV charging. Next slide, please. So in addition to the new navigation, there is a parallel track for Cali VIP 1.0 and Cali VIP 2.0 incentive projects. We are still having both of these running and have funding available for both of these. All future projects and CEC funding will be released through Cali VIP 2.0 projects, beginning with this Golden State Priority Project. However, there are still many Cali VIP 1.0 projects with funding available. Next slide, please. And to help you determine which one of these projects still have funding available, we've added little funding badges to the top of each project card. You can see on this page, most of these have funding available for L2 for various counties within the projects that are listed. And as you can see, San Diego County currently has funds fully reserved. So there's no currently available funding. However, that does not mean new funding could not become available through partners or additional funding that is just reissued back to the pot due to cancellations. So feel free to check this page out. We will keep updating it as funding changes and becomes available or becomes reserved. And we're trying to make this easy for you to see at a glance which ones are available projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. Within these project cards, the information on them has not changed. We still have frequently asked questions, your download forms, and all of your requirements, costs, application process information. However, there is a bit of a tweak to how everything is laid out. Next slide, please. So for example, the information now has an accordion style design, so you can open and close down any that you are interested in, and will help navigate to each of these sections much more quickly without having to scroll through the entire page. We've also added frequently asked questions in the About tab and the download forms in the document library located within the About and Applicant resources. So you can access these two resources from any place within the website. So say you end up in the eligible equipment page and you have a question, you can go to the FAQs directly from that page. Or if you are right on the homepage and really just want to access one specific document, you can go to the document library and access it much more quickly. Next slide, please. So for Cali VIP 2.0 incentive projects, we will still have project cards. However, since there will be much fewer individual projects, we are keeping these, we're making these bigger with more information to display the specific regions that will have funding available. Also a little title showing when the next application window will be available. So right now it says January 24th, 2023. That is when the next application window will open for the Golden State Priority Project. And then a little summary for each of the key items for this project and at a glance description of what the project offers. You can also sign up at the bottom to our mailing list. So that is easily accessible everywhere throughout the site. Next slide, please. So for 2.0 incentive projects, we will have a project overview at the top to highlight those key criteria and details. You can also check if your site is in a DAC or LIC census tract. So please head over to that page if you have questions on DAC, LIC, that's disadvantaged communities and low-income communities eligibility, as well as available funding visualizer. This one currently is not live on the website, but this is an example of what it will look like once we open up the application window and some funding is available for selection. Additionally, we'll highlight the eligible regions and the counties within each of those regions. Next slide, please. Similar to 1.0 projects, we are making the information on here, at least the sections, in accordion style, so you can easily go to the section that you are interested in. And we are putting more information on the page so that it is more easily accessible and readily available for you. Next slide, please. So you may have noticed also that your login process has changed a little bit. This is because there are several portals through which you can do separate actions due to a new system that we are implementing with the 2.0 projects. So if you have a 1.0 incentive project that you want to apply for or are still managing, or you want to submit equipment for verification for 1.0 projects, the login for that remains the same as before, at least the login information. All you have to do is select rebate applicant and your relevant project. However, if you are looking for 2.0 incentive projects, you will have to select Golden State Priority Project and create new credentials to log into that portal. As well as the equipment portal, you would select I am an equipment manufacturer, and that will take you directly to the equipment portal. So both of these require new login credentials. You can use the same credentials for both portals if you would like. However, that is not required. And both of these will be available January 24th, 2023 when the application window opens. And that is when you'll be able to create accounts within each portal. Next slide, please. So now we have a poll question. Do you think the new website layout is an improvement? It seems like a resounding yes. 89% thinks it's an improvement. A few people, 8% have some suggestions. So please feel free to let us know what those suggestions are. 3% do not like the change. So thank you all for responding to this poll. Next slide, please. Yes, so we still have all of our dashboards, specifically the rebate statistics dashboard. That can be located under the About section. We can see summary statistics, detailed statistics, a map, and these summarize all of our projects, what funding status they're all in, and various locations of each project that is in our queue or being funded. We also have a new dashboard, the eligible equipment dashboard, that is designed to help you more easily filter through all of the eligible equipment. Currently, this is only for the Golden State Priority Project. You can see equipment, you can see eligible network providers for the Golden State Priority Project, and you can click on eligibility requirements if you are curious what these were all reviewed on. Next slide, please. So the eligible equipment dashboard will have a rebate tier per each model and describe the model configuration that is within that rebate tier and a few other details through which that you might be interested in. This is what it looked like on November 1st. However, we've since updated it now that our website is launched. Next slide, please. To also include some links under each model configuration, as well as a few additional filters. And there's also the ability to compare two specific chargers. So say you wanted to compare the ABB Terra HP 175 and the BTC Power. Those two, you can compare the information side by side. You can click to navigate to specific product web pages, or to go to their specific connects page if you want to reach out to that specific manufacturer. So this information will be available for each specific model configuration that is verified to be eligible, and that information has been provided for. So if we haven't received information from the manufacturer, we cannot update the information. So that is an effort of ours to make sure every model has the information. But if it's missing, the likely reason is that we just have not received it yet, and we will update it as soon as we can. Speaking of which, updates for the eligible equipment dashboard will happen monthly. However, leading up to the launch, we will conduct those a little bit more on a more frequent basis to make sure that all the eligible equipment is as up to date as possible leading up to the launch. Next slide, please. So so we have created an events page, and you can see that the Preparing for the Golden State Priority Project webinar is already on the web page. This will be moved to the bottom once we have a recording, and all of the future recordings will be listed on the website, as well as some past recordings that we will be going through and adding. You can register up at the top, be the first to know about upcoming events. Sign up to be on our mailing list. That's what that link does. And then you also have that register button in the bottom right and that'll take you directly to our GoToWebinar registration link once that is available. So any upcoming webinars will be posted on this webpage, so you can stay up to date and be able to share that more easily with anyone you want to invite or think would be interested. Next slide, please. Speaking of which, some new resources is the document library. For example, we have highlighted some of the general resources up at the very top. For example, our Guide to California Regulations, our Energy Star certification process. We will also be adding an OCA certification process document on here. So any of those high overarching documents are in the general resources section. And our rebate forms and documents are summarized per incentive project. So please select the relevant project. Currently, there are none for the Golden State Priority Project, but those will be updated shortly with implementation manual, site verification form, and some resource guides that we will be discussing just in a few slides. Or in the very next slide, my bad. So the applicant and site eligibility guide is one of the guides that we will be posting on that resources page. This is meant to help guide some verification that you yourself are eligible to apply, and that your site is also eligible to apply. We've gotten some frequently asked questions, so we've made sure to include those in this guide as well. And these are meant to help guide you through the process of identifying eligible sites and applicants. So if you have any questions, please make sure to check out these guides first before reaching out to us with any questions. We would greatly appreciate that. Next slide, please. So the next one is the equipment eligibility resource guide. So this one outlines some charging station nomenclature that we use, specifically dispenser and connectors, whereas plugs and other nomenclature can be used for connectors. We use connectors universally. We also describe the eligible rebates per active connector and those rebate tiers, as well as a checklist to make sure your equipment meets our eligibility requirements if you want to submit it, and make sure double check before submission that it meets our requirements. That's what this eligibility checklist is for. However, any charger that is on the eligible equipment dashboard has met these requirements. So if it's on there, there is no need to double check that it meets our requirements. It's on there because we've already verified that for you. Next slide, please. Lastly is the permit and utility design resource guide. This is meant to help provide some key guidance and details on our new tiering process, what the permit application package is, what the utility service design package is, some best practices for submitting documents, and next slide, please. And also a checklist for each specific package so that you know that when you are submitting these documents, you are meeting all of the minimum requirements, or you know that you have satisfied the requirements for the second or third tier, second or first tier in application tiering. The purpose of all of these is just to empower you with information and guidance to essentially develop the best possible application upon submission, and will help us process faster and help notify you faster of funding being reserved for your application. So please check out these resources. They should be available shortly after the webinar, and we will be also emailing out once they are available so that you are notified immediately once they are up. Next slide, please. The last resource we have here is office hours. We will be offering some office hours during the application window where applicants can schedule time with Cali VIP staff to discuss questions, review some documents, and is primarily intended to supplement kind of those responses via email, especially when more complex situations arise. We will be sending out additional information and posting it on the website, discussing it at subsequent webinars. But the intention is to just provide you with more access to staff and help answer more of your questions via this dedicated time. So this will be opening up a few weeks before the application window opens. It will be opened for reservation of hours a few weeks before application window opens, and office hours will only be available during the application window. So please take advantage of those. Again, we want to empower you with information, provide as much guidance as we can so that you can make sure when you are submitting your application, it is all correct. You've submitted everything you need to, and we can get that funding notification to you as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So our fifth poll question of the day, this is the last one. We want to know if the additional resources we've discussed today will be of value to you. Great, glad to hear we are helping you provide with information and guidance that will be useful for you. It looks like 60% thinks they will all have valuable information, and 27% think most, and at least 12% think they will have some valuable information. So thank you for your responses and letting us know we are heading in the right direction here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Fidel. And so now we'll move into our question and answer session. Thank you to all of the attendees who have been submitting questions throughout the presentations. And so we'll kind of go through and flag some of the ones that have been coming up kind of frequently. And then if you have other questions, please feel free to continue to add them in. But moving forward with the first question, based on the July requirements, are they triggered based on application of funds, based on permit submittal, or based on installation? So this question is for Brian. If you could give a little bit more insight on when those OCA and Energy Star requirements would truly be taken into effect for applicants.
Sure. Yeah, so all of the requirements we propose today are effective July 1st, and that will be for new application submittal. So this first application window that opens January 24th and closes March 10th will not be required to meet those requirements. And this will likely be around when our second funding window hopefully opens in Q3 this year. So no projects that apply and are funded to this first funding window in GSPP will be required to comply with those. We're just, again, trying to give advance notice that this is coming and that manufacturers need to go start the process now, as I think many are, but they need to be certified and completed prior to July 1st, 2023 for future funding.
Perfect. And Fidel, a question for you. If a project does not require new or upgraded utility service and can be verified, but only HJ permits, would it be placed into Tier 1 or Tier 2?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is addressed in the resource guide. If you have a specific letter or note from the utility verifying, yes, you do not need a upgraded utility service or there's enough capacity on site, etc., we will accept, excuse me, we will accept those in lieu of a final utility design, would be treated as such. So that would be at minimum a provision of a Tier 2 type document. If you were also able to provide your issued permit at the same time, then you would be able to bump up to Tier 1. So in summary, you need final utility design and permit for Tier 1. You need final utility design or issued permit for Tier 2, and then one of the packages for Tier 3. The letter for the utility service design or proof that it's not necessary does satisfy the requirements of a final utility design.
Okay, Fidel, and then another question for you. Is this new site verification form going to be different, and when will it be posted?
It will have a slight change, primarily allowing site hosts to, the applicant to say that yes, they are the site host, because a site verification form will be required for all applicants. So that will be the only change. If you are still applying on behalf of someone else and still need to verify, you still need to get verification from the site host, that process does not change. So we'll still be accepting some of the old ones if you have those filled out. So the new change only applies for site hosts that are applying on their own behalf.
Okay, and then a question, Fidel, on the equipment dashboard. Does the equipment dashboard have an at a glance of the OCPP and Energy Star certifications for each equipment?
It will not show OCPP certification. What we are doing is showing that whether an equipment has met the requirements for the July 1st requirements. So if it is meeting both or all three of the requirements, that is the Energy Star certification, the OCPP certification, and the ISO 15118 hardware ready requirement. If we verify that those three have been met, then we will identify that charger as complying with the July 1st requirements.
And then a question on uptime. Who receives downtime info and how are you able to check that? For Fidel.
Yes, so the network providers that have been added to our eligible network providers list have all signed a data sharing agreement with us, and we will be obtaining the utilization charging session data through that agreement and through the signed terms and conditions of each application submitted. So with that authority, we'll get the information directly from the network providers, which will include that downtime information so that we can calculate that for every site.
And for Brian, there's kind of two questions I'm combining, but both are kind of on emerging technologies. And so one question is asking about, is there a place for grid independent charging stations? And then the other follow question is, how is bidirectional charging being incorporated into possible programs?
Sure. Yeah, so for the first one, grid independent, we're not really looking for that right now. We are allowing energy storage and solar to be supplemental, but again, the chargers must guarantee an output of 150 kilowatts at all times to every single active connector. And so it's very hard to guarantee that without a grid connection. So again, battery energy storage is encouraged to help mitigate demand charges, but they will still need to be grid tied. For bidirectional, that is something the Energy Commission is encouraging in the future and trying to work on other funding opportunities for that. Our block grants are pretty much for mass deployment of market ready equipment now, but this is again just one of our funding mechanisms at the commission where we have multiple others. And so we, I believe we are exploring other funding options through solicitations for bidirectional. We've done demonstrations in the past, and we do know it's important in the future, but we're still working on other funding opportunities before we bring it into our mass deployment projects.
And then Brian, another follow-up question that you might have some insight on about uptime requirements as well. The CEC uptime requirements will measure uptime based on charger level, whereas the NEVI uptime requirements are likely going to be based on site level. If the NEVI ruling is at the site level, do you see CEC revising the charger level to be consistent with NEVI?
So anyone following NEVI knows it's past due for the requirements, so we are all patiently waiting for the final requirements. What will CEC require is going to be pretty much set for now, because again, we're trying to launch this project as quickly as possible and we can't just put it on pause. So this first funding release, our requirements will be set, but we always have the ability to adjust anything in our project designs for future releases and funding. So it's a possibility, but we'll have to see internally and how leadership wants to handle that.
And question for Fidel. If the station is installed in workplace parking lots, can the chargers be restricted to employees only during business hours as long as they're open to general public outside of those hours?
No, so the requirement is that they be publicly available 24/7. So that would not count as meeting that requirement.
And I'll also just add here that as similar in Cali VIP 1.0, our fast chargers have a list of eligible site types. And so office buildings are not an eligible site type for fast charger installations. And again, these are meant to be public use chargers.
This could be for either Fidel or Brian, not sure at this one. Will there be a minimum distance requirement between sites to ensure maximum coverage and lessen competition between sites?
I can take that one. That will not be looked at. However, we will not allow more than one application for any site. So if you are interested in installing charging stations at a site, please include those all in one application, and we will fund up to 20 DCFC active connectors for that site.
And question for Brian, will other regions such as Orange County and LA counties be supported in grant opportunities at a later time?
Yeah, so I believe we mentioned this earlier on, but this is just our first funding window. This agreement for Cali VIP 2.0 has authority for a lot more funding, but we don't have all that dollars right now. And so right now it is tied to just these two regions, but as if more funding becomes available and approved, then we would be looking to expand to the other two regions, and depending on how much more funding, hopefully the whole state. But yes, this is just our first small step.
Adele, going back to Uptime, there's a couple questions on this. So one has to do with vandalization issues and how basically will there be allowed abandonment at a certain point if there's excessive vandalization, and how will program administrators confirm this projects are qualifying for excluded downtime?
No, so once you receive funding, you are agreeing to keep that charger operational for the 5 years at minimum and comply with the uptime requirements. So the vandalization is an excluded downtime event. However, it is capped at those 5 days for each specific event. So please make sure your sites, are well lit and safe, and you're picking smart sites to make sure that vandalization is minimized as much as possible, because it will be your responsibility to keep those up as a requirement of receiving this funding.
And then Monica, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. So there are two questions in regards to that you could possibly answer for OCPP. So do most of the major EV charger manufacturers have this certification? And then if they use certified software, is there a need to certify each station?
Yes, okay, thanks. I can take both questions. So first of all, if you'd like to know which manufacturers and which products have been certified, the only thing you need to do is go to the OCA website and look under the tab Certification Certified Companies. So everybody who has ever been certified is listed there. So you can check for yourself if the vendors that you're thinking of are already certified. So that's one. And secondly, the second, could you please repeat the second question?
Yes, the second question was in respect to OCPP, if they use a certified software, is there a need to certify each station?
Yeah, okay, so if you look at the certification procedure, you can download it from the website. What it states is that the certificate is issued for a OCPP software version combined with a specific hardware feature set. So there are a few, not that much, but there are a few hardware features that are relevant. So if you have charging stations who have the same different types of charging stations, but they do have the same OCPP software version and the same hardware feature set, then the certificate applies to both charging stations. All the details, so what are the specific features that matter, you can see in the certification program document on the website.
Thank you, Monica. And Fidel, is there a maximum award amount per applicant and per site?
So each, there won't be a cross-cutting aggregation per applicant. There is no 10 cap like in previous projects. However, there is a maximum amount of chargers that can be rebated per each site. So you can receive up to 20 rebates per site, and that depends. That the maximum amount depends on the combination of chargers that you're installing and the rebate tier that they belong to. I will also note that there is also a minimum number of active connectors, meaning number of connectors that can be used simultaneously. So you must install at least 4 connectors that can be used simultaneously on the site, meaning that 4 different vehicles could show up on the site and charge at the same time. So that is a minimum requirement for all sites.
And then Fidel, also a question, do chargers need to be CTEP certified and field tested by registered service agents?
Yes, so we will require adherence to all valid regulations at this time. That does include the CTEP certification for DCFC. However, we have heard that there is some difficulty in obtaining that certification and on-site installation. So there is a bit of lenience on this as far as the counties and other agencies are catching up to this. Brian, if you have additional thoughts, please also chime in.
Yeah, essentially what we've heard is that DMS doesn't have a testing method yet, or a formula, or an actual certification yet. And so since that hasn't been developed, a county or city cannot even test to something that they don't know what to test to yet. So though the legislation and effective date it will be effective, we've been told, it's not going to be implemented or mandated yet. So more to come soon, but right now we've kind of heard that the state's allowing leniency on it.
Okay, and this question goes in regards to EV manufacturers. So Fidel, is there any sort of positive weight given to manufacturers who build their equipment in the US using more than 70% US content?
No, there is no Build USA or any considerations like that for this program at this time. So all we're checking for is the minimum technical requirements being met.
Okay, going back to the uptime and downtime requirements, there was a follow-up question in regards to the answer. And so how will program administrators specifically confirm a project qualifies for excluded downtime? And does the applicant self-attest this?
Yeah, so again, that would be included in the data load from the network provider for that site. If there are situations where the data is not specifically outlined, we will reach out. But if you encounter an issue, it would be best to just reach out to us and let us know. But we will be monitoring through the incoming data utilization data from the network providers.
And I'll just add in there as well, as Fidel spoke to a little bit on a slide about AB 2061 regarding record keeping and reporting as well, that the Energy Commission will be developing regs and rules for this that will be, again, effective for any installation after January 1st, 2024. But those will be detailed and have to be added to the T's and C's for even these applications, since, again, these likely won't be starting until May. If you install it before January 1st, great, you won't have to comply. But essentially, as Fidel said, we're going to get most of the data from the EVSPs, the networks, but you're also going to be required to have some record keeping on your end. And so if there are gaps or something that we are missing, we will contact the applicant and site owner to collect those records to help us calculate the uptime.
Yeah, and Brian, there's a follow-up question as well. Have there been any penalties defined for sites that don't meet the uptime requirements yet?
Fidel, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Can you repeat it, Bailey?
Are there any defined penalties for sites that don't meet the uptime requirements?
Yeah, so there will be detailed penalties in the terms and conditions. So please read those in the terms and conditions, as those are very detailed. I believe the penalty is per year that is not in compliance, and I don't recall the exact amount, but that is detailed in the terms and conditions. So please read that, and once the implementation manual is posted on the website, it will also be included there. So please check both of those documents.
Yeah, and I believe the percentage is 2% of the overall rebate paid per year of that 5 years. So again, if your uptime was below 97% for 2 of the 5 years, you would be required to pay back 4% of the rebate you were paid. If you were down all 5, you would have to pay back 10%.
Okay, and then are there requirements for on-site public restrooms? And if so, do they require the same hours of public access as the chargers?
I guess I can take that one. No, there are not requirements for on-site bathrooms. However, there is usually usually the site types that have the 24/7 use would be expected to have that an amenity available, which may include a bathroom. So that is more up to the site host and the amenity that they offer. So please check the eligible site types on the website.
Okay, and then Fidel, a question on the tier system. If there's an influx of tier 1 applications, what will dictate who receives the award? Is it a lottery system, or is it by the date the application is received?
Yeah, so the process is first we will assign each application a tier based on the documents submitted with the application. Once the applications have been tiered, then we will go through and select applications in tier order. So tier 1 applications first, then tier 2 applications, then tier 3 applications. If at some point we are running out of funding and cannot select all applications within a tier, then we will randomly select applications within the tier to be awarded funding. So more of a lottery system within the tier. And this is outlined in the website, and will be also outlined within the terms and conditions, as well as the implementation manual. So please, you can check all those resources if you have additional questions.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that as well, that since it was brought up in the question about timing of submitting the application, nothing on when you submit the application will impact this. We really are doing the funding window to reduce user error or stress or anxiety about the window's open, let me go apply. We want to get away from that because we want quality applications. So when this funding window opens, we're really wanting you to take your time, gather everything, and make sure, triple check everything and make sure it's right. You can even reach out to CSE for assistance while you're submitting. But once your application is submitted and then the window is closed, there will be no more communication asking for changes or corrections, and you won't be able to provide any more information. Think of it similar to the CEC's solicitation process. Once it's done, you can't submit any new information. And we're doing this to, again, help everybody to speed up the processing time, where I believe the schedule showed, we're going to let everybody know who's been reserved, and we're going to let everyone know who wasn't reserved, their status or their outcome in a short amount of time. And so please make sure you're getting everything correct and getting as much documentation as you can to get into those highest tiers as possible.
Yeah, and important to also note that once you submit your application, you can't change it. So make sure that you have everything set. And once you click submit, you can't go in and edit that submitted application. And so do your diligence in making sure that's done, because if you do have to do it, that means you have to resubmit that entire application, and he'll have duplicate applications within the queue, and we have to deal with that. So make sure you have all your stuff aligned, and when you click submit, know that that is submitted. You can't bring that back. So another.
I am noticing a couple of Energy Star questions. I'm wondering if we could get to those next.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to get them on the list if you have them popped up? It might be easier than me popping around.
Sure. So these two questions are for Emmy. One is if the energy certification is by model or by series. And then the second question is about recertification of white labeled equipment.
Yeah, great, thanks. To the first question, you can certify a product family, so like a series of products. They have to meet the product family definition in the Energy Star EVSE specification. So there's like a number of attributes that have to be similar across the models within a family in order for it to be considered a family. One, and the most important being that they don't have different energy consumption within a product family. So in that case, you can certify one model and the whole product family would be certified, and your certification body can work with you on determining what would constitute a product family. And I'm blanking on the second question. Could you repeat that?
Sure, that was regarding recertification of white labeled equipment.
Yeah, so that is definitely an option. You would want to contact an EPA recognized certification body yourself to do that. And you would still have to go through the certification process, but in most cases, the certification body can use the lab results from the, like if the model has already been certified under a different brand name, they can most likely use those same test results to certify the product, so you would not have to retest, but that is ultimately up to the certification body. Any other questions?
Thank you, Emily. And then I have two questions here that are kind of related in regards to how many active connectors on a site. One, are you able to submit applications for a site that already has existing DC fast chargers on site? And two, will there be future rounds that don't require 4 chargers per site to allow for space constraints, etc.?
Yeah, so I can take that one. Yes, you can install additional chargers at the, if you can install new chargers if there are already chargers at the site. We're not considering whether or not there is a charging available, as long as the chargers are new and meets all of our requirements, then the site is eligible for funding. We are also currently including that minimum of 4 active connector requirement for all future projects. However, please feel free to provide feedback and of course, the determination of future requirements.
Is there a requirement as to how much site owners can charge per kilowatt hour for these stations?
No, we are not imposing any specific fee schedule. We are recording information about whether or not a fee will be charged to those using the chargers, but there is no specific requirement whether you want to offer charging for free for 20 cents a kilowatt hour or 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Those are all fine, and we don't have any specific requirements.
Okay, and this question is for Brian. Are you able to stack different rebates and incentives along with this, such as NEVI?
So we allow stacking with most funding. NEVI will not be stackable, as well as any other Energy Commission funds. And you cannot stack with investor-owned utility programs. But city, county, air district, CCA, anything else, POUs would be allowed to stack, again, up to your costs. We're still not going to allow any profiting, obviously, but those are going to be required to be reported so we can make sure that the rebate is calculated correctly. But again, NEVI will not be eligible, and you cannot stack with any Energy Commission funds, definitely.
Okay, and then seeing questions kind of slow down at this point, so this may be our last one here. Can the terms and conditions for the grant be provided ahead of time for review with legal teams?
Yeah, so we will be posting the implementation manual, which will be a version of the terms and conditions. Will include the majority of the stipulations we can explore. Also posting the terms and conditions on the website publicly. That was not originally the plan, but we can discuss internally and see how much of that language we can put out if there are any concerns of releasing that before the application window.
Okay, so there was another question that popped in right at the end. The funding amount by region for this first project is going to be $10 million for the central region counties and then $20 million for the eastern region counties. And those counties are delineated on our website. And then, sorry, go ahead, who's speaking?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say there's a couple more in our list that I wanted to address. One, I just wanted to remind that these requirements that we went over for Energy Star, OCPP, and 1511.8 are for all our new block grants from the Commission as well. So today we are talking about Cali VIP 2.0, but we also, which is fast chargers only, but we also have a new block grant that is communities in charge, and that will be level 2 chargers only, and will be launching also in Q1 next year. But all these requirements will be same time, July 1st, 2023 for theirs as well, and that these are not being imposed on new applications for 1.0. So I just wanted to make that clear that manufacturers, if don't just concentrate on your fast chargers, make sure you're also working on your level 2s.
Yeah, and I can address the few other ones that I see on here. So one is, can you confirm which shaded regions within the DAC LIC map qualify for DAC LIC? So we are considering disadvantaged communities and low-income communities as eligible. The map that is on the website does have one additional field that identifies low-income households within a half mile of a disadvantaged community, and those are not eligible since we are not funding any residential sites. So low-income households, that last category, would not be eligible, but all other categories of disadvantaged community, low-income community are, and this is outlined within our resource guide that we will make available on the website shortly. The other one is if all Cali VIP approved network providers are OCPP certified, or if an applicant has to confirm OCPP certification. The OCPP certification requirement is only for the chargers. That is currently not required for network providers. So the answer is no. Approved network providers may not be OCPP certified, and no, the applicant does not have to confirm OCPP certification for the network providers. For equipment, we will be requiring that certification for any application submitted after July 1st. And lastly, I think, Brian, a question for you is if this project goes over electric TRUs, terminal tractors, and I think just general medium or heavy duty applications.
Yeah, thanks. No, it does not. So this is funded from our light duty infrastructure deployment unit. And so Cali VIP 1.0, 2.0, and communities in charge is all meant for light duty vehicles. If you're interested in medium duty, heavy duty charging, our other block grant is called Energize, and it's managed also or implemented also by CalSTART, and they offer a block grant rebate system for charging medium duty, heavy duty, but it's still going to be pretty much the same style where it's going to be the physical chargers meant to charge the vehicles, so it might not be the actual systems for the long haul trucks, but more powering the vehicle.
Thanks, Brian. And I
did.
think there was one last question for Lonica about proprietary systems on OCPP. And I believe the question is just if a proprietary system can be overlaid over OCPP. Is that possible?
Well, I wouldn't know. So that sort of depends on the vendor. So I don't know if someone has a proprietary solution which can speak to OCPP charging stations, could be possible, but for OCA, yeah, we have no way of knowing that.
Okay, so if it's a proprietary system but is OCPP certified, meaning it adheres to those minimum requirements, that would still receive OCPP certification, essentially, right, Lonica?
Yeah, I think that the only thing the OCPP certification does is check all the OCPP messages if they are properly proper OCPP. So it could be other stuff in the system that may not be OCPP, which of course could be. So yeah, I think it's a bit a hard question. So maybe if we knew more details, I could give a better answer. So maybe I'm not sure if the one who wants to know this could maybe contact the OCA directly, and then maybe we can have more in-depth discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Lonica. And if the system is OCPP certified, then it would be considered as meeting that July 1st requirement. So please reach out to Lonica if you have specific questions about proprietary systems and how those might meet OCPP certification. Back to you, Bailey.
Yeah, there are two questions really quick on equipment eligibility. Are we still taking vendor equipment registration at the moment? Yes, we are. And then the follow-up question within that same question was, let's say one of the DC fast chargers is 180 kilowatt and has a dual port. One port provides a full 180 until the second port is being used, and then it equally divides it into 90 kilowatts each. Are these chargers eligible?
No, you would have to disable the simultaneous charging feature of that so that it is always providing at least 150 kilowatts at all times, even when a second vehicle is being plugged in. If there is also a load management solution where, say, as long as a vehicle is requesting 150 kilowatts, the charger will provide 150 kilowatts. And then once it's requesting less, it releases the remaining capacity of that specific module to the second vehicle. That may be acceptable, but for any specific questions like that, please reach out to us. I think our email is evcharging@energycenter.org. And you can also reach out to Cali VIP and we'll be routed to that email appropriately.
Yeah, there are some questions that are coming in with your response. And so can you clarify a little bit more how power cannot be split?
So the power can be split. The requirement is that when the power is split, each vehicle that is being charged still receives or is still able to receive at least 150 kilowatts. So say, for example, you have a 300 kilowatt charger that is able to charge simultaneously, splits the power equally between 150 when two vehicles are requesting 150, then that would be an eligible configuration of that charger. And similarly, if there is a load management option that ensures at least one connector is getting that 150 kilowatts when it's being requested, then that would be an acceptable solution as well.
Okay,
And regarding that first question about whether we are accepting new manufacturers, like Bailey said, yes, we are requesting new submissions. However, we will have to update that on the application after launch, as we have currently implemented a freeze on that platform for testing purposes, internal testing purposes. So if you haven't appeared on the list yet, it's not too late, but you may have to wait a few days to be added to that application. Just wanted to let everyone know.
If a site is within half a mile of the DAC or LIC boundary, is it eligible?
No, only LICs that are half a mile from DAC count, because they are in and of themselves a low-income community. But if it's a non-low-income community or a non-disadvantaged community, a half mile within one, that is not an eligible census tract.
And I also just wanted to remind everyone probably knows, but remind that with the updated Cal Enviroscheme 4.0, that tribal communities and tribal land is now considered disadvantaged communities as well. So those fall under DAC. That's why we're not calling them out specifically, but those are eligible.
And I guess we'll take this as the final kind of question as a reminder for everyone. When can they expect the new site verification form to be posted?
It should be available within the next couple of weeks. Again, that's really only needed for site hosts that are submitting applications on their own behalf. If you are submitting an application on behalf of a site owner or site host, you can still use any of the older site verification forms, and we will accept them. So if you want to get on that and get that signed, please feel free to go ahead, and we'll be requesting the same information in the follow-up site verification form.
All right, well, that kind of concludes, one more just popped in here. How many applications can a third party submit?
There is no limit, as many as you want. However, we do want all of these applications to be, high quality and minimize back and forth so that we can get notifications as quickly as possible. So please submit as many as you can feasibly submit in high quality. But there is no limit outright on how many applications you can submit.
Yeah, and on that again, the big part is don't submit more than you can handle. We are, in our previous workshops, we had a question about tracking performance of applicants or not contractors, but applicants that are managing these projects. And That is something that we're not implementing a hard requirement right now, but we will be tracking performance of cancellations or extensions and etc. And we likely will be developing a performance criteria in the next few months that we want to do some workshops with this and get more public input on it. But there will be some type of procedure where if an applicant that's managing applications for multiple site hosts falls below a certain performance level, they may kind of have to sit out for one funding window or something like that. So again, everything about 2.0 is performance and speed and quality. And so we really want to stress that please do your best to fill out the applications and have quality applications and projects ready to go.
Brian, if funds that are reserved are never awarded, will more projects get put on reserved at a later date?
So we won't be utilizing a wait list with this first project. As hopefully, we'll see if we're oversubscribed or not, but if there are remaining funds or if there's cancellations, those funds will revert to a future funding window if available.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go ahead and close the Q&A. We do want to announce we are having another webinar on January 17th of this year. Mariah, you can go to the next slide here. We have some post-webinar information here. Once again, all of this information can be linked back to our new website, all those resources that Fidel went through. If you have additional questions you want answered or need different answers to, there's our specified project email address, and then you can visit the CEC docket to view all of the Cali VIP 2.0 webinars presentations and submit comments as well. Everything's kind of held there as a little a singular website where you can access it all and download it all. As I mentioned before, this has been recorded and this will be posted, and so people can reference this as we move along. And then on January 17th, we'll be having a secondary webinar to go through that application process as well, to get people ready for that January 23rd launch. But as Fidel mentioned, we have a few more resources that we'll be adding onto the website, so keep an eye out for that. And then if you're not already signed up for any of our email and e-blast and everything, we do encourage you to sign up for those to keep in the loop of all of this. But the recording will be available on our website and on that CEC docket link right there. So we appreciate everyone's time today and great questions, and appreciate all of our presenters for helping us put this on. So we thank you very much, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.